Hello, everybody. It is such a great honor to present before you today at the SECON Conference, December 2024. This is an event that brings together some of the brightest minds and innovators in the field of cybersecurity. My name is Damilola Jibowu, and I'm a cybersecurity professional with over 20 years of experience in the IT industry, and the last 10 years of which have been in the cybersecurity field. I currently serve as a security consultant for a large MSP in New Jersey, specializing in vulnerability management, network security, IT audit and compliance, and as well as risk mitigation strategies. I am also pursuing a doctorate in IT leadership from Walden University with a focus on securing organizational networks from cyber attacks. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and I look forward to engaging with you as we proceed in this presentation. My topic today is building trust by trusting less. This statement can be considered as a paradoxical statement, just opposing two seemingly opposing ideas. On one hand, we are building trust like we see in the diagram, and on the other, we are trusting less. Now, while this concept may appear to conflict, the phrase actually reveals a deeper logic, which is that trust is enhanced by reducing unnecessary reliance or placing implicit unquestioned trust in systems, networks, or users without proper security controls. How was security before now? We had the castle and moat approach security model. The traditional security model, called the castle and moat approach, is a security model that relies heavily on strong perimeter defenses to protect internal systems, just as we see in this diagram. We see that everything within the white border, which is the perimeter, is considered safe, and everything outside it is considered unsafe. Why this model is not enough again in today's world? Well, there are three obvious reasons why this model can be considered obsolete. The first one is that, this model depends so much on perimeter defenses. The second one is that increased mobility and cloud adoption and remote work have also blurred the lines of the boundary. And the third one is that the sophisticated threats like the insider attacks, the APTs, advanced persistent threats, all of which can now bypass the perimeter defenses, have made this process or this model obsolete. Next, we move from the traditional model to the trust but verify model, as we see in this diagram. And this approach assumes some level of initial trust, often based on the role of the user, the relationship, or the location, but also incorporates checks into detecting any deviation or suspicious activities. Here we have VPN access with monitoring. We had role-based access control with audit. We also have secure email gateways with suspicious link scanning, and so on and so forth. This is where we are now, the zero trust model. In 2010, the zero trust model was introduced to the cyber world by John Kindervag. He developed this idea in response to the uptick in the cyber threats and the growing realization that the current model of trust but verify was no longer sufficient to secure an organization. This model is actually built on three core principles. The first one is never trust, verify explicitly. In simple terms, this means don't trust anybody by default, not inside the network, not outside the network. It means every single access request is to be authenticated and authorized, and before access is granted to whoever is requesting the access. The second one is least privileged access. In simple terms, just giving enough access for people to do their job, nothing more, nothing less. The third one is assume breach. What it's saying in simple terms is that break your network into smaller chunks and secure them separately, such that if there is a compromise on one end of the security network, it does not spread easily to the other parts of your network. In essence, zero trust challenges the outdated notion of implicit trust, advocating instead for constant validation of every access request, regardless of the request origin. Some real-life data breach examples. I have three here. The first one is the Target data breach that happened in 2013. From the reports, we understand that this happened based on the fact that the organization did not have proper segmentation, network segmentation in place. Another is the Equifax data breach that happened in 2017. This was a failure of patching the network and not having continuous monitoring systems in place. The third one that I'll talk about is the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack in 2021, and this happened based on compromised credentials. When we look at this data breach, we see that this is not a failure of technology, but actually a failure of the organizations that were involved in the data breach from utilizing technology to secure that networks properly against data breaches like this. So what are the lessons learned from these data breaches? Target 2013. It was reported that they didn't segment their networks properly. Zero trust principle will say no single individual should have unchecked control over critical configuration. It means that the network engineers configures the system while independent team like the auditor or the peers review and verify that the configurations are in place. And in simple terms, we're saying that never trust, verify explicitly. Equifax is the second one. They failed to identify exploitation of an unpatched vulnerability in a timely manner, and attackers were able to gain unauthorized access to sensitive data. Zero trust principle says assume breach at all times. This means break your network into smaller chunks and secure them separately. Microsegmentation limits access between network segments, ensuring that even if attackers infiltrate one segment, they cannot access the entire network. Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack in 2021. Hackers used compromised credentials to gain access into the network. Zero trust principle says assume breach at all times. This means break your network into smaller pieces such that if one aspect of it is compromised, the attackers cannot easily gain access to the other side of your network. Practice the principle of least privilege, meaning access to sensitive systems and data will be limited. Verify explicitly. This is actually needed for compromised credentials mitigation. The first phase of implementing a zero trust model is crucial as it establishes the foundation for the entire security framework. Now, central to this model is the identity and access management framework, which is the cornerstone for zero trust security model. The four aspects of the IAM model is 1, authentication, verifying a user's identity. 2 is authorization, what authenticated users can do or are allowed to do on the network. You have the user management, managing the user identities, and you also have the central repository that takes care of the user's identity and storage of the user's identity. Where do we start from? As the CIO, as the CISO, as the director of IT? Well, this process is not something that can be rushed. It's something that you have to take a step-by-step approach to implement. Building the zero trust in your organization, 1, you need to assess your security posture. You start by taking a hard look at your current security infrastructure. You look at your hardware, you look at your software, you look at your vendors, you look at your ISPs, your service providers. You look at everything critically and then have like an audit of your internal network. You also want to leverage the right technology. You want to invest in the technology that supports the zero trust model. You want to train your people. You want to keep auditing and updating. The cybersecurity landscape is always changing, and so should your zero trust strategy. The role of the executive in Zero Trust. You lead the charge. You manage the risk and the compliance within the organization. You drive the organizational change in your environment. You make strategic decisions. That's from choosing the right vendors to setting performance metrics. Your decision will shape how effectively Zero Trust is implemented within your organization. Building your Zero Trust team. One, you want to have people with identity and access management skills. These are the people that will manage the identities, enforce multi-factor authentication, access control with single sign-on, privileged access management. These are the people that have experience with these skills. You also want to get people with network segmentation experience. You want to get people that have experience with security operations and continuous monitoring, using SIEM, IDS and IPSs, SOAR solutions and all that. Endpoint security management skills is also very, very relevant to the Zero Trust team. And then you're looking at the cloud security skills also, people that understand the differences between the major service providers and the roles of individual players. The risk management and compliance skills is also needed. You want to get people with skills in managing risk and compliance. Some of the certification here, this is not exhaustive. These are just some that I just picked to illustrate the point that if you have people like the CISSP on your team, or people with the cloud security certification or risk certification, there is also the Zero Trust Certified Architect certification. The cloud solution providers like the Azure or AWS, these are the skills that you want to have in your team. In conclusion, Zero Trust is a commitment to a new way of thinking. It's about creating a culture where security is built into every interaction, every connection, every time. The education must start with every IT professional listening to me or watching this presentation. And at this point, I want to say a big thank you to everyone that has spared their time to listen to this presentation. And I hope that you've been able to pick one or two things that you will use to continually and better secure your organization's network. Thank you once again, and God bless.